Coopracy is the beautiful reset. I listened to Klaus Schwab's talk on reset, and he talks a lot about cooperation. Cooperation cannot mean in any way there's coercion. There can't be any coercion whatsoever, even if it's subterfuge and cynically quiet and done in ways that people don't understand they're being coerced. But there's a lot of coercion going on in the world at the moment. There's no doubt about that. And it's the very wrong way, the opposite way to what you ought to be doing if you want the world to cooperate towards a goal of stopping the environmental degradation of the planet in a cooperative manner. That's why I call the word Coopracy, because it's sort of, and I did that many years ago in 1994. I came up with the word Coopracy because I've been working on this idea since 1969, when I realised then there needed to be a reset in 1969 because of the constant upping and downing of the economic systems because of speculation. Then you don't have to be a genius to understand if you'd followed it all your life, and you can catch on to maybe there's something wrong with the way the politicians and the financiers were handling the system. But you cannot, if these people have got the power to manipulate politicians in coercive ways, maybe they're lacking in a bit of philosophy and understanding how to achieve the same goal without coercion. And that's what I call volunteer participation. Because if we're going to look at environmentalism, first of all, we've got to say, what does it mean? What does environmentalism mean? It is a philosophy, but what does it mean? One man's idea of environmentalism is being a trillionaire. Another one is living in a forest somewhere away from all the noise and all that sort of stuff. So it all depends. There's a broad range of understanding. If you ask ordinary people what does environmental mean or environmentalism mean, it's all about nature, but it's about in the heart and soul and mind of humans. That is where the most important environment of all there is. I mean, that's where it is. Because if we're not happy in ourselves, then no matter what the environment is or what we're doing to the environment, it's not going to make no difference. We're still going to be not happy in ourselves. This is why I'm totally against coercion in any way, in any shape or form, no matter what it is. I'm against coercion, but I am totally for asking a positive approach to this reset. A positive by volunteer participation for corporations, governments, and the people to agree to reduce consumption, because you can't have it where corporations need to increase their profits, to increase the shareholder values, which is purely speculative. So that becomes a monopoly system where fewer and fewer people are able to own the shares, but they need more and more profit each year, but reducing consumption is a contradiction in logic. Now, I'm not against companies making profit, but what profit means also needs to be discussed. If the profit of companies means the degradation of humanity and the degradation of the soils, the earth, the forests and the seas, there's a great big loss there. But it's a volunteer participation part of this, what creates a more positive cooperation or cooperacy, where so we agree We don't get coerced to behave in a certain way. This allows then an intelligent approach for humanity to do things the most important. Let's get down to nitty-gritty, to the basic principles of this. Is the idea that there are too many children being born or too many people in the world. That's basically a rather narrow view on the idea of life itself, because a comet can smash into the earth, or there could be a cataclysmic ice age or something like that, or pole shift, and much of the world's population will be annihilated anyway, regardless of anything else. So it's a really strange thing to say there's too many people in the world. Maybe those people saying that just don't like people. Maybe that's what the problem is. It's a psychological problem with the people saying that there's too many people in the world. Well, I don't like crowds either, but I don't say there's too many people in the world, because each one's an individual going through their own life, when they're going through the whole time-space paradigm for themselves. But the most irresponsible thing I've always understood is to bring children into the world and without two parents, without that basic family life, reasonably traditional, whatever that means. It could be, there's no perfect family and nothing like that. I'm not talking about that, but stopping the most important thing, that this to benefit humanity and reduce the population, would be ask people to opt out of the breeding cycle. Opt out. People, if they're not responsible to bring babies up, they shouldn't be having babies. But at the same time, they should be asked for volunteer participation of as many people as you can, by these corporations putting money into this, in people working on environmentalism. Planting trees, hydrology, development of hydrology, development of hydrology across the world wherever it's needed to help green the world, because it's greening the world what's important. So much as reducing the CO2, we're contrary to that, is to green the world as much as we can, by using hydrology as much as we can. Unless these people are willing to put money in to hydrology to green the world and employ millions of people in that process, well, they're not actually cooperating at all, are they? There's no much cooperation within those people. They just want the lower echelons to cooperate by coercion, but unless the top end and the governments and all these other people, the trillionaires, are willing to cooperate with putting money in to this, it seems rather a contradiction in principles. There's no principle behind this other than a dictate how it should be done. But there's another part of this, of volunteer participation within governments and within corporations, to reduce the working week to 25 hours a week for all essential workers, which includes horticulture for growing food for aged care, horticulture for growing food for children's schools. And these sort of simple things, simple ideas. This is not slavery or socialism. This is pure capitalism. Because people must be working. I'm against the welfare system. It's a failure. It just creates dependence. So this is a gradual elimination of the welfare system, and everyone doing 25 hours a week of something useful, whether it's nursing or the essential services. And this way also just makes a very important step as far as I'm concerned. It takes your thinking away about the silicon chip and its role in the future of humanity. Is it required as much as they think it is? I don't think it is, providing you have a positive forward motion philosophy, if you like, what is practical and pragmatic, and it's explained logically and honestly as possible to the people, so they want to come along. They're not afraid of coming along. And that is a generational change, which is a positive good for human environment. And that same thing works in cooperation with benefiting the natural environment. But unless these trillionaires and billionaires are willing to put some of their money in where their mouth is about environmentalism and about reducing populations, then there's no cooperation at all. That's a dictation. It's only when they manufacture the money on a program. It's not like they have to do anything work for it anymore. It's just digitally produced, so there's no one slaving away at the top there. It's just done by algorithm and a computer. There's no one sitting at the top trying to work out how to make more money. It just flows through the Federal Reserve. They just keep inflating the debt and whatever, and send more currency out. So it flows back into the shareholders and the stockholders and stuff like that, and inflates the profits of corporations. So there's no problems for them to put money out and finance things that benefit the environment, and ask people to volunteer to opt out of having children rather than use other means that are going on, and volunteer to work on environmental systems, whether that's social environments, like I said, growing food for people, and growing your own food in gardens, and it should all be voluntary. You could clear the streets of San Francisco of homeless people by this system, by cooperating with ask them, would you like to work on organic gardens to grow your own food somewhere? We're going to create the water out of the air, and you're going to grow food for yourself and help other homeless people. It's that simple. It's not complicated to create a positive approach towards this great goal of net zero or whatever it is, without all this coercion. If you treat people kindly, they will respond in the same way back. You treat people horribly, and they'll be respond in a way and it depresses people. If you're going to go forward, let's go forward with a happier world instead of what the world is at the moment, becoming more and more unhappy. How does that give anyone we're succeeding? No, we're failing. We're failing to give the right messages to people. Coopracy is the beautiful system. There's no coercion. It's explained simply. We volunteer into that process, including all the corporations and governments. It saves having a war and damaging the place, which they're suggesting. Let's ferment more war. How does fermenting a war help the environment or humanity? That's not cooperation, is it? It seems to me the very opposite.